So I told you yesterday that the silver rally isn't going to last and that there will be a huge cycle from silver and other valuable metals to gold in 2026. Actually, that change is already beginning to happen. I don't think XRP or crypto will really take off until mid to late 2026. This loop will last for a while. But here's what's going on right now. Silver has gone down. It's now 14% less than its all-time high from last night. I told you guys that this gathering couldn't last. As it turned out, there was a huge crash across silver right after I said that. This is why most people lose everything in markets. They're after things that have already gone up. They buy what seems safe because it's being talked about a lot on Twitter, YouTube, and CNBC. Silver was clear. It seemed like it had to happen, and the risk is usually greatest when something seems like it will happen anyway. What happened was not a coincidence. It was a change in funding. Money is still there. It moves. And once you know where it's going next, you stop responding emotionally and start planning ahead. This is where you need to really focus. Your comments are mostly wrong, but not because you're afraid. It's being impatient. You guys begged for XRP at these levels back in July 2025. In other words, begging. You said you'd put the truck back in place if the price went down again. Price is now here. The only thing I see is anger instead of excitement. Not happy, not sure. Why aren't we higher yet? That alone tells me that most people still don't know how to get rich. Exciting things don't make markets go up. They praise hard work. People who can be bored while everyone else is scared are rewarded. And XRP isn't meant to make you feel good right now. It's made to easily move value at a large scale. That's it. That's the whole point. That's why most people won't see what's happening right in front of them, since it doesn't look exciting yet. Before I go any further, I need to make this point very clear and quickly. The XRP Insiders Elite is designed to show you how the biggest holders of XRP are positioning themselves during this boring phase, including their accumulation plans, timing, and patience. Here are some special tips, real strategies, and ways that the richest 1% are getting ready for uneven upside. It's in the post about the video. Let's look at the cycle in a bigger picture, since this is where everything fits. You can still use crypto. A new phase of structure has just begun, but the hype isn't new yet. Those are not the same thing at all. When Bitcoin hit new highs, the hype phase was already over. That's the banana zone that everyone talks about. I also know that Raoul thinks the real banana zone is still ahead. A huge, steep melt-up like in 2017 or 2020. That's what I want to happen, believe me. But the way the market works now is very different. In 2012, Bitcoin wasn't well known. It was niche in 2016. It was coming out in 2020. It's now known all over the world. ETFs are real. The government is very open about it. Institutions know about it. That changes how big the speculative glut is. When knowledge is spread widely, you don't get the same reckless upside. You do get something much better. Repricing based on utility. That's why I don't think the real chance is to chase parabolic gains. It's about making it through the coming squeeze, because stretching always comes before expanding. And right now, the macro background is yelling compression. I will show you something that most people don't care about. The yield curve is the most accurate sign of a decline in modern financial history. Not news stories, not CPI prints, not what the government says. In the past 100 years, recessions have almost always started after the yield curve flattens out again and stays positive for a long time. We are right now in that place. Not yet, but the conditions are right for one. Take a look at 2000, take a look at 2008, take a look at 2020, the same pattern. Curve goes up, hope comes back, the rug then pulls, and risk assets don't get paid back when things go wrong. They get new prices. That's why I think things will get rough in the first or second quarter of 2026. That is when feelings get hurt. That's when people give up. At that point, everyone says crypto is dead again. Also, that's when real rolls are made. But this time there's a change. XRP doesn't need hype to happen. It needs water first. Things don't pump in infrastructure. It's slowly taken up. Corridors of liquidity, settlement trains, clarity and regulations. It takes time for these things to turn candles green. They lead to price changes after demand is no longer a choice. This time feels dull because of this. Now you understand why it's so annoying. That's why it's not a good idea to underestimate it. Silver falling isn't a sign of doom. That's helpful. It shows how quickly speculative stories can fall apart. Gold is expected to come after, probably around the middle of 2026. Coins will lose value during that time. But XRP's part isn't just a guess. How useful it is under pressure. Efficiency is more important than talk when volatility goes up. You need to remember what cycle you're in when you see red days or XRP not moving while jokes pump and dump. Right now is not the time to celebrate. Now, we are in the positioning step. The positioning step feels wrong all the time until it doesn't. There won't be fireworks next. It takes time. It takes focus. Being aware that the people who won the last cycle were the ones who didn't give up when things got tough. From silver to speculation to excess, this rotation will keep going. The assets that actually solve problems will be the ones that make it through the restart. Here's where things get really interesting. Once the big picture pressure is gone and digital assets hit their next real bottom, the rebound won't look like it has in the past. It will look a lot more picky. Capital is no longer blind, so the rebound will only help some people. In the past, anything with a number and a story got a lot of money. Capital is being careful, slow, and very picky this time. Organizations don't chase after lights. They wait for things to be clear, organized, and necessary. That's why XRP keeps throwing off people who are still thinking in terms of 2017. They're waiting for excitement when the real sign is to get ready. This is where most small buyers lose money, not at the top or even during the first drop. During the long, boring, grinding time when nothing seems to happen, they get worn out and doubt slowly takes the place of belief. That's the dangerous area. Then people stop paying attention to the basics and act based on their feelings. This phase always lasts longer than people think it will if you zoom out. Think about what needs to happen for crypto to make its next long-term move higher. It's not another round of shopping speculation. That took place already. It's not leaders who want prices to go up. That noise never stops. There needs to be structural demand that can't be turned off. Demand that exists no matter how people feel. That's not something people can make, but systems can. The difference that almost no one is making is that XRP wasn't made to do well when people are happy. It was made to work under pressure, when things aren't working as they should, and when liquidity is more important than theory. But those times don't come up when markets are having fun. When something breaks, they come. That's why the time is so important. It's not the end of the story if there is a macro-driven drop in early to mid-2026. XRP was made to work in that kind of setting. Take a look at what happens during recessions and times of low cash. There are still flows across borders. Money transfers don't stop. There is still settlement. What changes is how much you can handle waste. When risk goes up, margins get smaller and capital costs go up. Institutions look for faster, cheaper, and cleaner trains. That's when the usefulness shows up. It's not on Twitter, not on the images of YouTube, on the balance books. This is another reason why it's not accurate to compare this cycle to 2020. The world stopped in 2020. And central banks poured a lot of cash into the system. The prices of everything went up since money had nowhere else to go. This phase is expected to turn around. Conditions are tighter, more careful, not less, but more rules. In a strange way, this setting supports assets that are already in line with regulatory frameworks. A lot of people still believe that rules will hurt crypto. That's only true if your whole point rests on not making a mistake. Regulation is the green light, not the red light, for assets that are meant to work with the current financial system. It slows down speculation but speeds up acceptance. And those two forces don't move at the same time. That's why price behavior right now doesn't seem to be related to the news. There will be partnerships, positive developments, and growth in infrastructure, but the price won't change much. That's not being manipulative. That's taking in. Demand hasn't been forced yet, so supply is being quietly taken in. Forced demand typically happens after stress has shown where old systems are weak. And when that time comes, the price doesn't slowly go up. It changes prices. That's what most people miss. It doesn't matter how long you wait for repricing. It only cares if you were set up before it became clear that you were needed. Come back to feeling now. Everyone wants to be sure. Everyone wants to be sure, but proof doesn't happen until the chance is gone. Everyone will finally understand why XRP is valuable, but it won't be cheap or easy to buy. It always works that way. Those who act when the story feels unfinished will do well in the market. Anchoring to short-term timeframes is another big mistake people make. When they see the weekly lights, they think nothing is going on. The real game, on the other hand, is played over many years. Infrastructure doesn't move at the same speed as stores. It moves on plans set by institutions. Planning in secret, a slow rollout, and little exposure. It's just there all of a sudden. This is another reason why I keep focusing on cycles instead of price goals. Setting goals makes people lazy. They play with money instead of spending it. Cycles make you think about chances and getting ready. There is no danger in a macro restart in 2026. This is the last step in the setup. That's where weak hands leave and strong places are finalized. Be honest with yourself. Would the chance even be there if everything was clear right now? Would you still be early if XRP was already worth a lot? Of course not. Early always makes me feel bad. It's always lonely. And it's always dull right before something important happens. This is also where stories begin to change. At the moment, sadness is the main story. Why does XRP not seem to be moving? What's the holdup? Later, the story starts to get confusing. How fast did it go? That change takes place quickly. It takes place after placement, not before. We are still in the part where our patience is being tried, in places where noise is making belief weaker. People start to doubt choices they were sure about just a few months ago. That's not a mistake. Markets are made to make people sure of what they want before paying them, which means that red days won't seem dangerous if you know that. They seem to be useful. They let you know who is still here for the right reasons and who came just to have fun, because fun doesn't last, but order does. The real story is rotation below the surface, but most people only look at silver, gold, and crypto as separate lines. From guesswork to precision, from craze to infrastructure, and from consumer desire to government need. That change is slow and not very exciting, but it's very profitable for people who see it coming early. The next piece of the plan is becoming even more important as this phase goes on. Knowing how and why feeling falls just before the big move is made is not something to be afraid of, but something to look forward to. This is not advice about money. Before the real move, sentiment always falls because markets need doubt to change their positions. There is no fuel left if everyone is positive. That's why the most powerful protests don't start with a lot of noise. They start with being tired. Prices are no longer being checked. They stop saying things. They no longer care. That's the emotional bottom, not always the price bottom. That difference is more important than almost everything else. By 2026, if the macro pressure keeps building the way past examples show it will, the average investor won't be thinking about the gain. They'll be thinking about how to stay alive. Those are the times when risky assets are written off. Then the headlines change from what's next to is this finally over? That's when things that are useful in the real world quietly change from being optional to being required. This is where the way XRP was designed becomes important in a way that most people aren't ready for. It's not about competing with stories about Bitcoin or the hype around joke coins. It's about fixing a certain problem on a large scale. One of the most expensive, slow, and broken parts of global banking is cross-border settlement. When things are good, that lack of efficiency is okay. It's not okay when you're stressed. When there is less supply, friction can be seen. When volatility goes up, the speed of payment is important. When partner risk goes up, it's important to be final. These aren't issues that affect stores. They are ones for institutions. It's not like institutions move based on how people feel. When it costs more to stay put than to move, they do decide to move. This is why time is very important. Adoption doesn't happen when the market is happy. It takes place when processes are stressed. And if there is a slowdown in early to mid-2026, it will force people to make choices that have been put off for years, not talked about on CNBC, not a big deal on social media, put in place quietly, because that's how things get changed. A lot of people think that price leads to acceptance. In fact, acceptance often comes before price, though not always right away. There's a delay, one that is annoying. A lag in which everything seems to be still and faith is put to the test. Price doesn't ask for approval again once the lag is gone. It jumps to show a new truth. This is another reason why short-term plans don't work right now. It doesn't matter if XRP drops another 10%, 20%, or stays the same for months. The structure is still the same. Long-term weakness actually makes it stronger by moving supply from impatient hands to focused ones. It's never easy to go through that process, but it's always important. Right now, what you're really seeing is a change of control, from people who wanted things right away to people who know what delayed inequality means, from traders to people who build positions, from nothing to something. A chart doesn't make that move stand out either. It shows up in how people feel. Look at how the stories have changed. People who were thrilled when prices were higher are now rude when prices are cheaper. The same asset that was bound to fail is now failing. That flip doesn't make sense. It makes you feel, and markets always play on people's emotions. Things don't always happen the same way, but history does rhyme. This part of a big cycle is always there, the part where faith breaks down, the part where being patient seems foolish, the part where faith seems too simple. Every time the people who make it through that phase are the ones who get ahead when the cycle changes. The important thing is to realize that the turn doesn't look like a party. It looks like they don't care. It looks like nobody is interested. When attention comes back, it's too late to get good entries, so placement is very important at that point. That's why I keep telling you not to use price alone to judge growth. Structure, clear rules, integration, and who's still building when no one's looking are all ways to measure it. At this point, those are the signs that matter. And when the big picture changes, when liquidity levels stabilize, and when people are willing to take calculated risks again, capital won't rush in like they did in previous rounds. It will go to assets that have already shown they are useful when things are tough. That's what makes this time different. Speculation is replaced by selectivity. That means that being bored, angry, or unsure right now doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're just starting a phase that will make you feel this way. The market doesn't test how smart you are. It tests how patient you are. We won't have time to think about it because the next growth will start right away. We won't have time to wait for proof. The price will change faster than people's feelings can change, and stories will change all at once. The only thing that will matter is whether you positioned during the quiet or responded during the noise. In the end, that's what makes the difference between people who keep loops going and people who are changed by them. One group is waiting to be sure they are safe. The other knows that safety is just a false idea made up after the chance has passed. You can join the XRP Insiders Elite to find out how the top 1% are placing themselves during this phase, including their accumulation strategies, timing, risk management, and how they're getting ready for a possible 100x asymmetric move.